The classroom was never meant to become a battlefield. It was designed to be quiet, controlled, and predictable. Smooth metal walls surrounded the wide room, glowing softly with alien symbols that shifted colors every few seconds. Rows of seats were fixed to the floor, each built for different species. Some were tall and narrow, others were low and wide. Every student in the room belonged to a different world, all except one. The human sat near the center. His name was Elias. He was young, smaller than most of the others, and looked completely out of place. His chair was adjusted awkwardly to fit his body. His hands rested calmly on his knees, while his eyes moved slowly around the room. He did not know why he was here. None of them did. Above them, behind a transparent wall, unseen watchers observed every movement. This classroom was part of a research station far from any star system humans knew. It was called a learning chamber, but that was not its true purpose. It was an experiment. The alien students whispered among themselves. Some clicked their jaws, others hissed softly or tightened their clawed hands. Fear was already spreading, even though nothing had happened yet. A low sound echoed through the room. The lights dimmed. A deep voice filled the chamber, calm and emotionless. The experiment begins now. Every student froze. The floor vibrated slightly, and the far wall slowly opened. A heavy door slid aside with a sound like grinding stone. Cold air poured into the room, carrying a strange smell, sharp, metallic, and alive. Elias felt it too, but he did not move. From the darkness beyond the door, something stepped forward. It was large, much larger than any student in the room. Its body was shaped like a massive predator, low to the ground, with long limbs and sharp edges where muscle met bone. Dark skin covered it, woven with glowing lines of blue and violet light that pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Its eyes were bright, intelligent, and dangerous. Some students screamed. Others tried to run, but their seats locked instantly. Panic spread fast. The creature stopped just inside the room. It lowered its head slightly and scanned the class. Its gaze moved from one terrified face to another. It smelled the air, breathing slowly. Fear was exactly what the observers wanted. This was not a lesson. This was a test. The voice spoke again. You are part of a trust evaluation. This organism has been trained to respond to behavior. Aggression, fear, and deception will be noted. The creature took a step forward. Several alien students lost control. One slammed his fists against the restraints. Another cried out in his own language. A third fainted where he sat. The creature reacted instantly. Its head snapped toward the loudest noise. The lights on its body flared brighter. A low growl filled the room, deep and vibrating, shaking the walls. Elias felt fear too. His heart beat faster. His breath became shallow, but he stayed still. He remembered something his father once told him back on Earth. When facing a dangerous animal, fear makes you look like prey. Calm makes you unpredictable. The creature moved closer. It stopped in front of the first row. An alien student raised his arms in panic. The creature roared. The sound was terrifying. Several students screamed at once. The room became chaos. Fear signals flooded the sensors hidden in the walls. The observers recorded everything. Then something unexpected happened. The creature turned away from the screaming. Its glowing eyes settled on Elias. The human met its gaze. He did not shout. He did not move. His hands remained open and relaxed. His breathing slowed as he forced himself to stay calm. The room slowly grew quieter. The creature took one step toward him. Elias felt the pressure in the air change. He could feel its presence, powerful and focused. Every instinct in his body told him to run, to fight, to do something. Instead, he sat. The creature lowered its head slightly. Curious, it moved closer until it stood directly in front of the human. Some of the aliens stopped screaming. They stared in disbelief. No one had ever seen a human do this before. The creature sniffed the air near Elias. Its glowing patterns softened. The harsh light dimmed into a steady glow. Elias slowly raised one hand. The observers reacted instantly. Alarms flashed silently behind the glass. Data streams spiked. Risk detected, one observer noted, but the creature did not attack. It leaned forward. Elias' fingers brushed against the creature's surface. It was warm, firm, alive. The creature did not pull away. It sat down. The classroom went silent. Fear was still there, but now it was mixed with confusion. The voice returned, slower this time. Subject response recorded. The door at the far wall remained open. The experiment was far from over. This was only the first phase. The observers exchanged looks. The experiment had already begun to change, and humanity had just made its first mark. The silence did not last long. Behind the transparent wall above the classroom, the observers were already reacting. Screens filled with data, heart rates, fear levels, chemical responses, and behavior patterns. What they saw did not match their predictions. The human was still alive. More than that, the creature had chosen to sit. Inside the classroom, the alien students remained frozen. None of them dared to move. Their eyes shifted between the massive glowing creature and the small human sitting calmly in front of it. Elias slowly lowered his hand. His heart was still racing, but he forced his breathing to stay steady. He could feel the creature watching him closely, not as prey, but as something else. The creature tilted its head. It made a soft sound, low and controlled, not a growl, not a threat. Curiosity. The voice returned again, echoing through the room. Phase 1 complete. Several students gasped. Phase 1? That meant there were more. The seats unlocked without warning. Panic exploded. Aliens jumped to their feet, shouting and pushing away from each other. Some rushed toward the walls. Others backed away in fear, pressing themselves into corners. Elias stood slowly. The creature rose as well, towering over him. Its glowing patterns brightened again, reacting to the sudden movement around them. A sharp alarm tone sounded. The observers were not pleased. This level of chaos exceeds expectations, one of them said. Increase pressure. The lights in the classroom shifted to a harsh red. The temperature dropped suddenly. Cold air rushed through hidden vents, making several aliens shiver. Then the floor began to change. Panels slid apart, revealing dark gaps between sections. The room was no longer stable. Every few seconds, a section of the floor dropped slightly, then locked again. Fear spiked instantly. One alien slipped and fell, crying out as the floor beneath him shifted. Another screamed as a panel tilted, sending her sliding toward the gap before locking again. The creature reacted. It moved fast, too fast. It leaped across the room and placed itself between the panicking students and the unstable floor. Its body blocked a widening gap, anchoring itself with powerful limbs. The glowing lines along its body pulsed rapidly. Elias watched in shock. The creature was protecting them. The observers noticed too. That was not expected, one said quietly. The voice spoke again. Fear response insufficient, introducing behavioral conflict. A new door opened on the opposite side of the room. This time, multiple shapes emerged. Smaller than the first creature, but faster, sharper. Their bodies were lean, built for speed and aggression. Their eyes glowed a harsh red. Predators. The alien students screamed again. The smaller creatures rushed forward without hesitation. The large glowing creature roared and turned to face them. What followed was chaos. The predators attacked, snapping and clawing. The larger creature fought back, blocking strikes and pushing them away. The room filled with movement, light, and sound. Elias was thrown backward by the force of it. He hit the floor hard, gasping for air. One of the smaller creatures broke through. It locked onto Elias instantly. Its red eyes focused on him. The creature lunged. Time slowed. Elias rolled aside just as claws sliced through the air where his head had been. He scrambled backward, heart pounding, fear flooding his mind. The creature turned and attacked again. Before it could reach him, a blur of blue light slammed into it. The larger creature had moved between them. It struck the predator with brutal force, sending it crashing into the wall. The predator collapsed, unmoving. The room fell into stunned silence again. The larger creature stood over Elias, breathing heavily. Its body glowed brighter than before, not with rage, but with purpose. It looked down at him. Elias slowly sat up, pain spreading through his body. He expected fear to take over. Instead, something else filled his chest. Gratitude. He nodded slightly without thinking. The creature responded in a way no one expected. It lowered its head again. The observers exchanged uneasy looks. This is developing attachment, one said. That should not be possible. The voice hesitated before speaking again. Continue. The predators were withdrawn, the doors closed, the floor stabilized, the lights returned to normal. The classroom was a mess. Several aliens were injured, shaking, or sitting silently in shock. Others stared at the human and the creature with a mixture of fear and confusion. Elias stood slowly. He looked around the room. Then he did something no one predicted. He spoke. "We don't have to fight," he said quietly. His voice was calm, steady, even though his body hurt. Many of the aliens did not understand his language, but they understood the tone. "We are all scared," he continued. "But fear is what they want." Some aliens looked up. "They are watching us," Elias said, pointing toward the observation wall. "They want to see us break." The creature remained beside him, unmoving. Elias took a step forward. "If we keep panicking, we lose," he said. If we stay calm, we survive. The room slowly grew quieter. One alien lowered his weapon-like claws, another stopped shaking. The observers were silent now. Data streams showed something impossible. Fear levels were dropping, trust signals were rising. The voice finally spoke again, colder than before. Subject behavior anomaly confirmed. Ilias felt the weight of unseen eyes on him. The experiment was no longer testing the classroom. It was testing humanity, and it was starting to fail. The observers did not stop the experiment. That alone was a warning. Behind the transparent wall, the beings who controlled the station studied the data in silence. The numbers told a story none of them liked. Fear was no longer spreading as planned. Instead, something else was forming inside the classroom. Unity, inside the chamber, Ilias stood with a large, glowing creature at his side. The creature remained alert, watching every movement in the room. Its trust in the human was clear now. It did not move unless Ilias moved. It did not react unless Ilias showed concern. The alien students noticed this. Some stepped closer without realizing it. Others watched carefully, trying to understand what they were seeing. A few still trembled, but their panic was fading. The voice echoed again. Phase 2 begins. The walls shifted. Panels slid open across the classroom, revealing tall, narrow pillars rising from the floor. Symbols lit up on their surfaces. Each pillar glowed a different color. The temperature changed again, growing warmer this time. The air felt heavy, difficult to breathe. Ilias felt pressure building in his head. One of the alien students collapsed to the floor, clutching his chest. Another cried out in pain, holding his head as if something was pressing into his mind. This was not physical anymore. It was mental. The observers watched closely. This phase targets decision-making under stress, one said. They must choose. The voice explained nothing more. Suddenly the pillars activated. Images appeared above each one. Scenes of danger, loss, and survival played in the air like living dreams. Some showed alien homeworlds burning. Others showed loved ones trapped, calling for help. Ilias clenched his fists. He saw Earth, cities shaking. Skies filled with fire, people running. He felt his breath catch. The creatures around him cried out. Many dropped to their knees, overwhelmed by what they were seeing. Some crawled toward the pillars, reaching out as if they could touch the images. A loud tone sounded. The pillars changed color. The voice spoke again. Choose one. Confusion spread. One alien screamed in frustration. Another shouted in anger. None of them understood what they were supposed to do. Then the floor shifted again. Sections began to sink slowly. The ones closest to the pillars dropped first. This time there was no panic scream. There was understanding. The pillars were safe zones, but there were not enough. Ilias felt his stomach drop. This was the real test. The aliens began to move toward the pillars, pushing and shoving each other. Some fought, others begged. Fear returned, sharp and desperate. The creature growled softly. Ilias raised his hand. Stop, he said. Some heard him, some did not. One alien pushed another aside and reached a pillar just as the floor beneath them dropped. The other fell, disappearing into darkness below. A horrible sound echoed from beneath the floor. Silence followed. Everyone froze. Ilias swallowed hard. The observers watched closely. Conflict level increasing, one noted. Acceptable. Ilias stepped forward again. We can share, he said loudly. The aliens looked at him like he was insane. There are not enough pillars, one hissed. Someone must fall. Ilias looked at the images again. He looked at the sinking floor. He looked at the glowing creature beside him. Then he made a choice. He stepped away from the pillars. The creature turned toward him instantly. No, Ilias said softly, placing a hand on its side. Stay. The creature hesitated. Ilias looked back at the others. Fear makes us enemies, he said, but fear is not the only way to survive. He moved toward the center of the room where the floor was already lower than before. The sinking began again. Gasps filled the air. Human, one alien shouted, You will fall. Ilias nodded, I know. The creature growled louder now, shifting its weight. Ilias turned to face it. Trust me, he said. The creature stared at him. Then it did something no observer expected. It moved, not toward a pillar, toward Ilias. It positioned itself beneath him as the floor dropped further. Its massive body locked into place, anchoring itself against the collapsing panels. Ilias stood on its back. The floor beneath them fell away completely. They did not. The creature held. The room went silent. The pillars flickered. The sinking stopped. The voice did not speak. The observers stared at the data in disbelief. The human chose loss, one whispered, and the subject responded with protection. The images above the pillars faded. The lights returned to normal. Several aliens fell to their knees, shaking. Elias climbed down from the creature's back and helped one alien to his feet. Then another. No one stopped him. No one attacked. Something had changed. Fear no longer controlled the room. The voice finally returned, colder than before. Behavior deviation confirmed. The walls sealed shut. All subjects will be contained. That was when Elias understood. This was never about learning. It was about control. The experiment was not failing. It was revealing something dangerous. Humanity and the observers were afraid of it. The containment began immediately. Thick energy fields slid down from the ceiling, sealing every exit. The classroom lights dimmed again, this time into a cold white glow that made every face look pale. A low hum filled the air, steady and heavy, pressing against the ears. The alien students looked around in fear. Elias felt it too, but his fear was different now. It was sharp, focused. He had seen enough to understand one thing clearly. They were no longer students, they were threats. Behind the transparent wall, the observers were arguing. Their voices were sharp, no longer calm. "This exceeds acceptable deviation," one said. "The human is influencing group behavior," another replied. "Influence leads to rebellion." A taller observer stepped forward. His eyes stayed fixed on Elias. "Humans adapt too quickly," he said. "They do not break the way others do." Inside the classroom, the voice spoke again. "All subjects will remain in position." No one moved. Elias felt the creature beside him shift slightly. It sensed the tension. Its glowing patterns pulsed slowly, ready. Several alien students whispered among themselves. Fear returned, but it was mixed with something new. Anger. One alien raised his voice. "You said this was learning," he shouted toward the ceiling. "You lied." No answer came. Instead, the floor beneath him flashed. A shock ran through his body and he collapsed with a cry of pain. The message was clear: obey or suffer. Elias clenched his fists. "That's enough," he said. His voice echoed through the room. Every head turned toward him. "You brought us here without choice," he continued. "You put us through fear and pain, and now you want silence." The creature stood taller beside him, its body glowing brighter. The observers watched closely. "He is challenging authority," one said. The voice returned, colder than ever. "The human will remain silent." Elias shook his head. No. The word was simple, but it carried weight. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the energy field around the room tightened. The air grew heavy. Breathing became harder. Several aliens dropped to their knees, gasping. The creature roared. The sound shook the walls. Elias felt the pressure too, but he forced himself to stay upright. He stepped forward, placing himself between the others and the unseen force. "If you want control," he said, voice strained but steady, "you will have to go through me." The observers froze. "That is not fear," one whispered. "That is protection." The pressure stopped suddenly. The silence that followed was heavy. The voice did not respond. Instead, a new sound echoed through the classroom: footsteps. Doors opened along the walls and armored figures entered. They were tall, sharp, and cold, their armor glowing faintly with control symbols. Their weapons were raised, aimed at the students. Guards. The alien students cried out again, fear returning fast. The creature moved instantly, stepping in front of Elias and the others. Its body expanded slightly, bracing for impact. Elias raised his hands. "Wait," he said. The guards hesitated. They were trained to respond to fear and chaos. What they saw instead was something unfamiliar. Order. The students stood together now, not united by fear but by choice. Elias spoke again. "We are not your enemies," he said, "but you are turning us into them." The lead guard stepped forward. "You are property of the program," he said. "Compliance is required." Elias met his gaze. "Then your program is broken." The creature growled softly. Behind the wall, the observers realized something too late. The experiment had crossed a line. This was no longer a test of trust. It was the beginning of resistance. The lead observer spoke sharply. "Remove the human." The guards moved. Before they could reach Elias, the creature lunged. It did not attack to kill. It attacked to block. It knocked two guards aside, sending them crashing into the wall. Energy weapons fired, striking the creature's side. The glowing patterns flickered, but it did not fall. The classroom erupted. Aliens rushed to help the fallen. Some pulled guards away, others shielded the injured students. Elias grabbed a fallen control device from the floor. He did not know how it worked, but he remembered something important. Humans learn fast. He pressed the device against the energy field near the wall. It flickered. Once. Twice. Then it failed, a section of the barrier dropped, fresh air rushed in, alarms screamed throughout the station, the observers shouted over each other. They're breaking containment. This was not predicted. Shut it down. Elias looked around. This is our chance, he said. The creature lowered itself, allowing students to climb onto its back. Others followed Elias through the opening. The guards regrouped, but they were slower now, confused. Fear had changed sides. As they moved through the corridor beyond the classroom, Elias understood the truth. The experiment was designed to find leaders, not the loud ones, not the strong ones, the ones who could turn fear into unity. And that terrified the observers more than any creature ever could. The corridor outside the classroom was long and narrow, filled with flashing red lights and warning sounds. The station was awake now. Alarms echoed through the metal halls, bouncing off the walls and growing louder with every step. Elias moved forward without stopping. The alien students followed him, some limping, some helping the injured, all moving as one group. The large, glowing creature walked at the rear, its body blocking the corridor behind them. Its glowing patterns were weaker now, flickering from the damage it had taken, but its focus never left the group. Behind the observation wall, the station command chamber was in chaos. They are spreading, one observer said, panic clear in his voice. Seal the lower sectors, another shouted. No, the tall observer said sharply. If they reach the communication core, this entire project collapses. Inside the corridors, security drones dropped from the ceiling. Their red sensors locked onto the group instantly. Down! Elias shouted. Energy blasts filled the air. The creature surged forward, shielding the group with its body. Bright flashes struck its side. It roared in pain but did not fall. Alien students dragged the wounded behind cover while others pulled Elias to safety. Elias' mind raced. They could not fight forever. They needed control. He spotted a maintenance panel along the wall, its surface cracked from earlier damage. He rushed to it, pulling it open with bare hands. Inside, glowing cables pulsed with energy. This controls the doors, Elias said. Help me. Two aliens joined him, their long fingers working fast. Sparks flew. The corridor lights flickered. The drones froze midair, then they dropped. The group did not cheer, they kept moving. They reached a wide junction where corridors split in multiple directions. Signs flashed in alien symbols. One symbol pulsed brighter than the others. Elias pointed. That one, he said. That's where they're scared of us going. The creature let out a low sound, almost approving. As they moved deeper into the station, they passed cells filled with other subjects. Beings from many worlds pressed against energy barriers, eyes wide with shock as they saw the group moving freely. Elias stopped. He looked at the cells. He knew this moment mattered. We can't leave them, he said. Some aliens hesitated. If we slow down, we die, one whispered. Elias shook his head. If we leave them, we become what this place wants us to be. The creature stepped forward and struck one of the energy fields. The barrier shattered. The hangar bay shook as warning lights flashed across the walls. Sirens screamed in long, broken waves. Large doors stood half open, revealing rows of small transport ships and one larger vessel at the far end, its engines already warming. Elias moved as fast as his tired body allowed. The creature walked beside him, slower now. Its glowing patterns were faint but steady. Every step it took was a choice to keep going. The freed prisoners filled the hangar behind them. Dozens of species, all moving together, all watching the same human who had led them this far. Above them, the station trembled again. This station will self-destruct in 3 minutes, a cold voice announced. Fear returned. Some aliens froze, others cried out. Elias climbed onto a raised platform and turned to face them. Listen to me, he said loudly, his voice cut through the noise. They built this place to make us afraid, he continued. They used fear to control us, but fear only works when we face it alone. The crowd quieted. We are not alone, Elias said, not anymore. He pointed toward the large ship. That ship can carry us, he said, all of us. The creature stepped forward and let out a deep, steady sound. It was not a roar. It was a call. The aliens understood. They moved. Loading began fast and chaotic, but not panicked. The injured were carried first. Children and smaller beings followed. Elias stayed behind, helping guide everyone aboard. The creature stood at the entrance of the ship, refusing to move until the last one entered. The station shook harder now. Elias turned back toward the control chamber once more. He could see the observation wall through the open corridors. Inside, the observers were scrambling, trying to escape. Their calm was gone. Their control had failed. The tall observer looked directly at Elias through the glass. "You have doomed us," he said through the speakers. Elias met his gaze. "No," he replied, "you doomed yourselves." The human turned away. The ship's doors sealed shut. Engines roared to life. As the ship pulled free from the hangar, the station behind them began to tear itself apart. Explosions rippled across its surface. Fire and light filled the darkness of space. Then it was gone. Silence followed. Inside the ship, beings sat or stood wherever they could, breathing hard, shaking, alive. Some cried. Others laughed softly in disbelief. Elias sat on the floor near the creature. He leaned against its side. "You saved me," he said quietly. The creature turned its head and rested it near him. The ship's screens suddenly flickered on. A transmission request appeared. Unknown origin. The aliens tensed. Elias looked up. "Accept it," he said. The screen filled with faces, many faces. Leaders from different systems, military commanders, civil councils, worlds that had just seen the broadcast. A voice spoke. "We saw everything." Another followed. "The experiment, the fear tests, the control." A third voice, deeper and calm, spoke last. "And the human." The screen focused on Elias. "You did not dominate," the voice said. "You did not destroy, you protected." Elias swallowed. "We just wanted to live," he said. The voice responded gently. "That is why you matter." Days later, the ship arrived at a neutral system. Help was waiting. Medical ships, diplomats, defense fleets. The survivors were welcomed, not as test subjects, but as witnesses. The creature was taken carefully for healing. Advanced systems worked to restore its strength. It never left Elias' side. Across the galaxy, the story spread, not of violence, but of trust. A human placed among fear-driven systems. A classroom meant to break minds. An experiment designed to prove control. And one human who refused to break. New laws were written. Secret programs were exposed. Entire factions fell overnight. Humanity was no longer unseen, but it was also no longer feared for the wrong reasons. Elias returned to Earth months later. He stood under open sky, feeling wind on his face, something he thought he might never feel again. The creature stood beside him, smaller now after healing, but still glowing softly. Children watched it with wide eyes. "It trusted you," someone said. Elias smiled faintly. "No," he replied. "We trusted each other." Far across the stars, new experiments were canceled. New alliances formed. And when humans were invited into galactic councils, they were